Good evening and welcome to the New York Symposium with Diane Sayre. I'm Diane Sayre, formerly a candidate for U.S. Senate against Chuck Schumer, soon to be a candidate again because the system is not going to stop us from what needs to be done. I will be joined this evening by the other LaRouche independent candidate in this last midterm election, Joel DeJean from Houston. For those of you wondering what happened, maybe we'll start with that, and then we will move along to discuss the strategic situations. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here right now. Or maybe I'll just stop for 1 second here. So ultimately, the State Board of Elections credits my campaign with 25,640 votes, I believe. But it took the press some time to get there because they clearly were getting a feed from the county totals. And some of us had the pleasure of watching a rather unusual sight, which I'm going to show you right now. This is something sent to me by a friend in Paris who took this screenshot at about 7:30 in the morning Paris time, which would be 1:30 in the morning East Coast time here. He took the shot because he noticed something peculiar was happening, which is that my vote total was going down, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So you see here that Schumer has 55.7% of the vote, Pinion 43.4%, Sayre 1% with 53,091 votes. In a few hours from then, we had the next result, and I'd like you to also notice the total number of votes reported. Now, Diane Sayre is down to 0.9% with 51,554 votes. So I'm down already by about 2,000 votes. The total reported votes is 5,541,000. Now, a few hours later, and this is not 32 minutes ago, but this was yesterday morning. Oh, and I should say the previous one, which showed me at 51,000 votes, was from 2:59 a.m. This is from the New York Times. So by the next day, I am down to 29,954 votes, 0.5%, but they are now 5,600,000 votes being counted. And then later in the day, yesterday, my total went down to 27,904 votes with 5,644,000 votes reported. And then finally, we are at 25,829 votes with 5,658,000 votes reported. So somehow, the more votes were counted, the fewer votes I had. Now, I developed a hypothesis on this and told my husband quickly, because according to the New York State Board of Elections, I always had 25,600 or something. So I said to my husband, well, it seems that somehow, and we knew that one county I had over 6,000 votes at midnight on election night, but by the next morning it was down to 177 votes. So I said, why don't you quickly, when the New York Times still said I had 27,000 votes, I said, look, there's 2,000 more votes that they've got to get rid of. Why don't you look up every county to see what I have, and then we'll know which counties then lowered the votes. So sure enough, he wrote all them down. Unfortunately, didn't get screenshots of all 62 counties, but he tabulated them all. And then a few hours later, sure enough, my vote dropped by another 2,000 votes. And so we went back and discovered that in St. Lawrence County, my vote went from 844 down to 195. From Jefferson County, my vote went from 543 to 142. And Niagara, the vote went from 1465 to 370. So this is quite amazing in broad daylight. And I had to ask, is this just coincidental? I mean, not coincidental, but is it that people are that incompetent and stupid? They're supposed to be pulling some kind of shenanigans with the vote, but they're so dumb that they did it publicly? Or is it that they are just that totally incompetent? I mean, sending a message. Was the point of this to basically, as we put out in a book when Dick Cheney was running the show under Bush, called Children of Satan. And LaRouche talked about Leo Strauss and this question of the lie, that part of using a lie, part of using fraud, is to be so in your face about the fraud that you seek to intimidate someone, that you want to send a message that we can do this and you can't do anything to stop us, and give up. So whatever it is, I have no intention of giving up, because the world and the nation are in too grave of a crisis. I think that this will prove to have been a terrible mistake, to be so unbelievably blatant about what they were doing. And I think they're very afraid. And that gets me to some of the interviews that I did immediately after the election with foreign press, wanting to know what happened to the giant red wave. I think you may have an idea what might have happened to it, and whether there's going to be a change. Now, as people know, we still don't know if there'll be a Republican majority in both houses or not. It's not clear to me that the Republican Party will dramatically change our policy of sending billions of dollars worth of weapons to a Nazi-infested regime in Kiev to continue to provoke war with Russia. I think it's not clear either to the Biden administration and his warmongering controllers and advisors. So I would say that this period right now between the midterm election and when the new Congress is sworn in is extremely dangerous, because there is some reason to fear. I'm not fearing it, but for people who've been doing corrupt and evil things, that there may be a change. There may be some investigations launched, and they won't be able to get away with certain things. So therefore, all of the dirty deeds that they want to accomplish have to be gotten out of the way during this holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, etc., which is so nobody can afford to be silent or to go away or take a vacation. Now, on the strategic situation, the Russian ambassador to the US has reiterated again the danger of the Ukrainians, and under probably British advisement, producing a dirty bomb that is a bomb laced with radioactive material, which they would seek to detonate and blame on the Russians, which would become a pretext for more aggressive action by the United States, hopefully not a first use of nuclear weapons, which we are the only nation in the world that has not ruled out first use of nuclear weapons. We have the continuing brilliant policy of raising interest rates, supposedly to stem hyperinflation, but which are causing massive increases in people's debt and the indebtedness of the American people. We have the situation in Europe, where thanks to the now publicly announced collaboration between Liz Truss and the US Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, who it seems were taking credit for blowing up the Nord Stream pipelines. You're going to have a very rough winter in Europe, but there's also a revolt, and I would like to report that Helga Zepp-LaRouche, I think this morning or perhaps yesterday, addressed a conference of leaders celebrating the spirit of Bandung from 1955, but this organizing of other nations than this Anglo-Dutch Great Reset bloc of billionaires to reestablish a certain kind of relations amongst each other. And she said every nation needs to be sovereign, needs to have its own national bank. We need a new security and economic development architecture that the rest of the nations of the planet can do this. And people may be aware that even Saudi Arabia is now interested in joining the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. There is potentially a whole new system coming into being. And that is why people like myself and Joel and others who tell the truth pose such a threat. So what I'd like to do is just play a little bit to remind you of some of the collateral effect of this campaign. I have Anastasia Battle on with me, who has been part of these interventions, which you'll see at the end. And then we're going to go to Joel and Anastasia. But this movement to tell the truth publicly has to spread. So we're going to see a little compilation of some of the conversations we've had with various elected officials. And let's see here. Want to make sure that I share the sound properly, right? Yeah, here we go.
Brand. My name's Jose Vega. I'm a proud Bronx resident, born and raised here. Listen, I do have one issue with you. I hope that's okay.
Yes, please.
You know, you said that it requires citizens to stand up and speak about what's right. I want to talk about Ukraine because what's happening is that you approved funds to go over there, and then there's this list that's floating around that was put out by the Center for Countering Disinformation of Ukraine. And the problem is that you have American candidates, American citizens there who are critical of America's foreign policy, who are on this list. And you have received a letter, you and other members on the this committee of intelligence have received a letter from Scott Ritter that says that these lists are hit lists. Historically, these are hit lists. And you and Senator Schumer and other senators voted to send funding over to Ukraine, and this funding is being used to put American candidates, American citizens on this hit list.
What's the list? I don't know about this.
The point here is that people are being put on a hit list for disagreeing with the American policy. Rand Paul, right? Tulsi Gabbard, and Diane Sanders. Now, if you were not aware of this,
Keep talking.
I just want to know if you will agree to meet with us on this. A letter was sent to your office on July 28th. You did not respond. You say you're not aware. Fair enough, you're not aware of it. Will you meet? Diane Sanders is a candidate for the very seat that you hold.
Oh my God.
Why is she on a terrorist hit list? Will you meet with us?
We could do more on gun control. We could do more with regard to the black agenda. We can do more.
Congressman, you're a hypocrite because you are funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They are wearing they are wearing the Black Sun symbol, the same symbol that the Buffalo shooter used, the same symbol that the person who almost killed the vice president in Argentina used.
Thank you so
say you
much.
want to advance the black cause, but you are funding the same people who kill in the name of white supremacy.
This is
Okay,
the
$60 billion
foundation.
for the Bronx?
This is the foundation of our democracy, freedom of speech.
You choose to fund Nazis.
Stick around and I will have a conversation with you right after the end, but let me get to the conclusion. Stick around. I promise. I got you. The foundation of our democracy is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech.
Congresswoman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because there are a bunch of war hawks, okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against. That's what you've become. You are the establishment, and you are the reason why everybody will end up in a nuclear war unless you choose to stand up right now and denounce the Democratic Party. Will you do that? Yes or no?
The list that you're worried about and the list that you are concerned that are being targeted by Ukrainians is not what you think it is. And so I just assure you, Americans are not being targeted by Ukrainians. If they were, our FBI, our CIA, and our DOD would protect American citizens. They will not allow American citizens to be targeted by a foreign country, no matter.
Sorry, Senator.
And
I am Diane Sayre. I am on that hit list.
I know you are.
And Scott Ritter is on that hit list. People on it have been attacked and killed. I got a package today in the mail that had rattling noises in it that said something about Ukraine, and I had to call the police because I didn't know what was in it. They are killing people. Amnesty International admitted that it's the Ukrainian army using civilians as human shields. And you and 99 other senators voted unanimously to declare Russia a state sponsor of terrorism, which means that all diplomatic channels with another nuclear power are cut. I think that is highly irresponsible. I will hear what you have to say. I hope you are not of the opinion from that idiotic public service announcement put out by the city of New York that we can survive a nuclear war by closing our windows and listening to the radio. And I do want a better answer because the State Department is funding it. I've been on the website for the Center for Countering Disinformation, which has my name on the list and says I am an information terrorist who should be charged with war crimes. And that does put me in danger.
Okay, listen, so I'm aware of the list. I understand your concern. If you believe you are threatened, either one of you, by Russians or Ukrainians, we will get you, we will get you the number to report that to the FBI, and we will follow up on your reports. You should not feel to be at risk or to be targeted, and I will help you get more security.
Senator, you have got to stop funding Nazi-infested Ukrainian regimes. You are bringing us to the brink of nuclear war. You have got, those billions could be used for a lot of good things here in the U.S. Instead of funding Nazis in Ukraine, they're preparing a dirty bomb to detonate and blame on Russia.
This is not why we're here.
I am here to make sure that billions of lives are saved
We are going to ask you to leave,
instead
sir.
of getting into a
We are
nuclear
going to ask
war.
you to leave, sir.
You've asked me, I heard you.
Yes.
I will move towards the end.
Please.
This is not.
Yes.
Anti-war. 80 billion to Ukraine is not anti-war.
We are helping Ukraine defend themselves.
Ukraine is killing its own citizens
Helping people
in the Donbass.
war. we are helping little children like me that have been helped. So listen, unless you have not been paying attention to what is happening, there are millions of Ukrainians that have been displaced. There are piles of bodies that are being found in mass graves. There are little children whose lives are being lost.
By Zelensky!
Here.
Yeah, by Zelensky in the Donbass.
But unless you are someone like me that has been that child, you do not get to tell me what my votes mean and how I get to vote in supporting people.
Senator Booker, hi, nice to meet you. I came here to ask you about what your plans are for peace in Ukraine. Right now we're facing potential nuclear war. It's no joke. So far, it seems like the politics doesn't seem to be addressing this whatsoever, with the ongoing election. I'm curious what it is that you're planning on doing to bring peace.
Yeah, and you're right. You are the worst Secretary of State in history. Why don't you tell us about the CIA? You lied and stole. The policies that you implemented, you were Secretary of State. They're the reason that we're currently headed towards a nuclear war with Russia and China. You distinguish yourself from people like Obama, but the two parties, they are the war party. And you are a who has led us towards war. Talk to us why you killed Soleimani. Why'd you kill him? That could have led us to another third world war. You are the deep state that Donald Trump was trying to purge. That's you. Shut up. You are the swamp monster. That's who you are. You are destroying this country. Military spending is destroying this country.
You overthrew Ukraine in 2014! You overthrew the legitimate Ukraine in 2014! Tell us about your plans for nuclear war with Russia! Stop provoking nuclear war with Russia! You're going to kill us in nuclear war! Russia's the enemy! Russia is not the enemy! Russia's the enemy! Stop getting us into nuclear war with Russia! No nuclear war! Victorian new independence overthrow!
Mr. President, there's more people that are going to get hurt if we go into nuclear war. Right now, we're on the verge of nuclear war thanks to what you did in Ukraine in 2014. Why don't you tell the truth about what you did to overthrow Ukraine in 2014? Will you tell the truth? Will you tell the truth?
There is a process that we set up in our democracy.
Yeah, but we're on the verge of nuclear war. Do you care about the lives of your supporters? Will you tell the truth before the world walks into world war?
President Biden! Pope Francis has opened up the Vatican for peace talks. Will you negotiate, sir? Nuclear war must never be fought and cannot be won. Will you negotiate? Sir! Will you negotiate? Russia and China have a no first strike policy. What about America?
That's more like my generation.
I thought the Democrats were anti-war and anti-colonialism.
All right.
Cringe.
I'm with you. Hey, anyway. Look.
The war between Ukraine and Russia must be brought to
the next couple of years
is
going to have more to do with what this country looks like 20 years from now than anything else. We'll let Joe talk, okay? We're going to talk about it.
We need peace, not war.
Look, this election isn't a referendum, it's a choice. It's a choice between two fundamentally different visions of America.
No war.
I've said from the beginning.
This election isn't administration.
Nuclear war cannot be won, it cannot be fought. You are playing with all of our lives. You are trying to get us into a confrontation with Russia. You are trying to get us into a nuclear war with Russia. You came into office during the worst economic. Get out of here. You have squandered it on a proxy war with Russia. You are trying to kill us all.
I tell you, I love that.
Nuclear blackmail.
So there are things that can be done when the elections, when we don't seem to be able to make our voices heard through other means. So I'm just going to go right now to introduce Joel DeJean, and then I see Anastasia has joined us, who is involved in the Obama conversation. Joel, why don't you go ahead? What thoughts do you have? And I muted you, so you need to unmute. Let's see here. Sorry, I hope I didn't make this impossible. There you go.
Yeah, there's a very simple explanation on your vote totals. It appears that your vote totals are tied to the value of Bitcoin, so that as Bitcoin crashes, your vote totals go down. So yeah, that's part of the fraud. The other part was the lack of discussion of any real issues by both parties. Here in Texas, there was virtually no discussion. And the guy who won the race, who was anointed to this new congressional 38th district in Texas, didn't even show up for any campaign events except one. It was at a oil company meet the candidate forum. And I believe the only reason why he showed up is because this particular oil company, Phillips 66, their political action committee paid him $5,000 just for running for Congress. So he figured he had to give them at least 10 minutes. So there was no discussion about the war, because both parties fundamentally agree that we, and when I say we, I mean NATO, United Kingdom and United States, have to take down Russia and China. And that's the goal of both war parties. And on economics, they have the same policies. Let the Federal Reserve jack up interest rates, keep the money flowing to the money center banks, and do nothing to actually relieve the infrastructure shortage collapse that has occurred in this country over the last 50 years. So we did manage to get out Lids for laws, because that's the only way out of this mess. And as the crisis deepens this coming winter, more and more people are going to remember what I said, what Diane said, what others have said in the campaign. And hopefully they come around in time, because we don't have a whole lot of time to avoid World War III and a hyperinflationary economic collapse.
Thank you. Good. We'll open it up. Anastasia, so tell people about the process that's happening with a lot of younger people in the country and the increasing willingness of people to speak up. I'll say someone put in the comments, in Belgium, we can't even talk to officials like that. Luckily here we still can, but Anastasia, go ahead.
Yeah, as you saw, our organization is really leading the fight to make this heard. People, I'm getting reached out to people from all over the country and all over the world, thanking us for what we did, because people have been censored and they feel isolated, and they're realizing that they're not alone that in what they're thinking. And this youth movement that we've been growing, this international LaRouche youth movement, is so incredibly important. Really getting young people to recognize that we have to unite people beyond their ideological beliefs, beyond just their axioms that they assume how the world works, and start getting people to think about what's best for humanity. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing our young people literally putting themselves on the line right now to fight for what's truthful. And given what we're getting as a response, Lyndon LaRouche's name has been broken out into the mainstream media. There's now discussions going on amongst, I mean, my God, almost every circle now that I'm going to talk to. People who have been scared to talk to us before because of whatever slanders that they heard, or some jerk was telling them, oh, don't talk to those people, you know, they're crazy. And they're like, well, I kind of want to talk to those people now because you're crazy. And they're realizing that there's been a social control to prevent people from talking about what's truthful. And LaRouche has been one of the leading actors in fighting for the truth. So there's a huge opening right now. There's vigils being set up across the country. I want you to reach out to us, join what we're doing, and creating these peace vigils, these peace marches. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, socialist, communist, whatever. I really don't care. What's that?
Go ahead.
Oh, you know, we've got a very small opportunity right now to unite people around the world to fight to change from an imperialistic system. And that's what we're seeing right now. So please join us when we have, I'm going to be planning a larger vigil in DC coming up. And I'll get out the information once we get that in motion. But we should start thinking big like this.
Yeah, and these vigils involve singing Dona Nobis Pacem, which many people do seem to still know, and if they don't, they can learn it quickly. Since you brought up this LaRouche question, which is extremely important, I'm just going to share one other small snippet here, which was the interview, just a section of it that I did with Jimmy.
In 2012 and 2014, she ran for the U.S. House of Representatives in New Jersey's 5th Congressional District in the Democratic primary, calling for the impeachment of then-President Barack Obama. Oh, nicely done. Me too. She is a supporter of political theories and policies advanced by the late presidential candidate Lyndon LaRouche, ladies and gentlemen. That's the third rail in American politics. Please welcome Diane Sayre. Is that how you say your last name, Diane?
Yes,
Fantastic.
you got it exactly right.
Okay, now Diane, so you're running against Chucky the Shoom, and before you were a Democrat. Now, what made you switch from a Democrat to what's your party now?
Independent, and in New York, there's no such thing, really. So if you want to get on the ballot as an independent, you have to create what they call an independent body. So I chose to name it LaRouche because there's a lot of people in New York familiar with LaRouche, and he was a genius as far as economic policy and other policies went.
So now I don't know much about the LaRouches, but I know you're anti-war, right?
Yes, and you're certainly right that LaRouche is a third rail. I would say his name is more controversial than Donald Trump, even, which is hard to imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
you know that. But you may have seen my billboards that say U.S. out of NATO, dump Schumer. And when I began this campaign, there were actually a couple of things that I was very concerned about. One was Schumer's threat to then incoming President Donald Trump, the 6 ways from Sunday.
Yes.
Right? How dare you reorganize those intelligence agencies that have lied us into war after war after war, that are spying on American people and deep sixing political leaders and everything else. So that, had a certain resonance given what happened to LaRouche, the jailing, the 400-person FBI agent raid on his home and various things, and the danger of war. I think we are on the brink of a nuclear war. I think Russia is afraid of that. I don't know if you saw the statement they just put out today, asking for a reiteration of what they said in January about nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. I don't think they'd be raising that if they didn't think it was an actual risk right now.
Well, I wouldn't put it past the United States and NATO provoked this invasion, and I wouldn't put it past them if they tried to some kind of goofy first strike bullshit.
What if we do it tactically?
What if, right? They've already.
Well, look, you've seen the public service announcement. You know we can all survive.
Yeah, they're telling us that we.
It's not that bad.
They're trying to tell us we could survive nuclear war. It's not so bad.
Look, I have a good base tan. I think I'll be fine.
So that's so you're standing up strong and you're calling out the warmongers, and you're a former Democrat, and now you identify with LaRouche. Tell me why is LaRouche the third rail in American politics?
Well, because in the 70s and 80s, one, he was trying to create something I guess he called the debt bomb, which was to get a bloc of nations. He was working with Indira Gandhi when she was the head of the non-aligned movement to declare a debt moratorium so you could bring down the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and you could establish an international development bank that would actually be far more equitable and allow nations to develop as opposed to looting them and stealing all their infrastructure.
So wait a minute. So you're telling me that he had an idea that would undermine the oligarchy, the international oligarchy, billionaire class, and take down and actually be better for the people. And so you're saying that's why they tried to paint him as a crazy?
Yes, I know. Hard to imagine.
So what Anastasia is getting at, and the LaRouche question is absolutely critical in my mind for the survival of mankind and our republic, because this case, and I believe the policy direction of the United States began shifting immediately after the death of Franklin Roosevelt. When Truman came in, the FBI played a major role in targeting leaders. You had the McCarthyite witch hunts, you had the nuclear bombs dropped on Japan. Then fast forward, assassinations of both Kennedys, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King. Fast forward, the assault on LaRouche, who was a presidential candidate with 400 FBI agents and US Marshals surrounding his home with the intent to assassinate him, which Reagan, who was on his way out of the country to talk with Gorbachev in Reykjavik, and who had assigned LaRouche to be his back channel to the Soviet Union, Reagan called off something that had been ordered by forces, well, by the city of London through George Bush, William Weld, etc. Then you had 9/11. So we've had a series of ratcheting down, destroying the principles of our Constitution, the commitment to the general welfare, the idea of freedom, not liberty to do whatever you feel like, come what may, but a principle where every person is seen as valuable, that every person should have an opportunity to make a contribution to society as a whole. We don't have that now. And instead, you have something like a police state dictatorship where people are cowed and threatened by being called names or even having the FBI show up on your front yard. That has to be defeated. And the LaRouche case and LaRouche's name being cleared is a major part of that. And I wanted to respond. Various people have said things like, well, we give you a lot of credit for trying. I am not trying. We are going to defeat this enemy. Joel DeJean was not trying. Anastasia is not trying. This is a serious fight. If we lose this fight, we potentially lose mankind. On the other hand, if we persevere, then we can establish an entirely new system. And that's what has to be done. And it doesn't matter LaRouche did not win election to the presidency. Nonetheless, he recruited Ronald Reagan to take an action which led to the Berlin Wall coming down, namely the adoption of the Strategic Defense Initiative. So that's what we're doing. We're changing history in this. That's what I want people to be very clear about. So I will be quiet and allow my guests to share their thoughts.
Well, the thing about the third rail is you're not supposed to touch it. That is the power source for your subway car. And you can think of LaRouche as the power source for the economy. And tomorrow we'll be having a conference dealing with that question. A conference to revive the ideas of not only LaRouche, but Vladimir Vernadsky. So because of human cognition, we are able to do something that no animal, no other mammal can do. We can discover universal principles like electricity, like nuclear fission, and eventually nuclear fusion. We can travel into space. No other animal, except if we put it in a capsule, can go into space. So we'll be discussing that on 2 panels tomorrow. And LaRouche's ideas have revived the ideas of people like Vladimir Vernadsky, Leibniz, Riemann, Planck, Einstein, Marie Curie, all of the great thinkers who gave us the principles and ideas that have led to the possibility of 8 billion people on this planet. These are the ideas that have built the civilization. That's what LaRouche represents. So in a way, that is a third rail because that is a power source of ideas.
Very well said, Anastasia.
Yeah, I'll just give you a sense of some of the responses I'm getting. There's a woman that I'm working with who she opened up to me and said, you know, I read over your 40-year history. This was a really wonderful document that Matt Ogden, member of the LaRouche movement, wrote, just going through who Lyndon LaRouche is and what we've accomplished, the policies we put forward. You can find it at the EIR website. Anyway, she read through this and she said, you know, I wish I would have met you sooner. If I had known what you guys were actually about, I probably would have joined. And you know, she went on to some other networks and whatnot, and worked for people that she regrets getting into office, and wants to change that. She wants to change the outcome that she felt that she participated in, which is really wonderful. Or people today that I spoke with who were just like, you know, I've heard bad things about LaRouche, but I read what you guys said about peace through economic development, and I was so drawn to it that I don't disagree with you on this. So it was so funny. You know, people are realizing that, you know, just this social control has been keeping them from actually talking about what's truthful. Or just here's another fun example. I had somebody who was attacking us in a meeting and who was passing out or giving out this Washington Post article about how LaRouche, you know, he was sentenced to prison for 15 years, blah, 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 blah. And all I said was, right, because the Washington Post is going to give you the real story. And people loved that response. They're just like, yeah, why do you think posting that's going to change somebody's opinion? So that's the potential right now. And exonerating LaRouche's name and the smear campaign they pulled on him means actually winning over humanity. That's what that means. Because this the same reason why they're trying to cover up the fact why we've been financing Nazis in Ukraine, pretending that we're not going into nuclear war with Russia, is a similar kind of operation to keep you from knowing who LaRouche was. So it's actually a really fun time to be organizing, and you know, being able to just be free and not worry about what other people think is the most wonderful experience. That when I decided to join this movement, this was the exact moment I was hoping that we could create. And even though it's absolutely terrifying, I mean, I was absolutely terrified yelling at Obama in the middle of a 1,000-person rally of people that probably wanted to eat my eyeballs. It was worth it. And getting the response that we're getting now, and that we actually could make this a reality. So please join us. Don't just wait for this. This campaign isn't over. This is a national and international campaign now. This is not just a New York campaign.
Great, thanks. And it will continue to be an international campaign, even as we have more national electoral campaigns. So I think I want to conclude. I just want to say a couple of things. One, absolutely. I just put in the chat, both on YouTube and Facebook, links for the LaRouche organization and the Schiller Institute. Please check there for this conference that Joel just mentioned on Vernadsky. Also, you can sign up there if you want to report on your activity, or you can look for Anastasia or Jose Vega on Twitter, or myself on Twitter. You can send us a direct message on your own intervention on these. I would just say, and I think you heard it in the examples, and the ones that people have sent to us also are very good. We want to stay on message. We're not just screaming and yelling for the sake of disrupting. There is a particular message that has to be addressed, which is that we're sending billions of weapons to Nazis in Ukraine for the purpose of provoking war with Russia. That's an insane policy, and it could lead to nuclear war, which none of us will survive. And therefore, we want that stopped. And since every single Democrat in the Congress has voted in favor of all these weapons shipments, and I think it's 60 or something Republicans who voted against them, the vast majority have been supporting it, and even people opposing it have to be pressed to do much more. However, ending war does not mean peace. And that is where the fight for LaRouche's ideas. You see behind Joel a map of the world land bridge of the Bering Strait crossing between Alaska and Russia. The United States needs 43,000 miles of new modern high-speed rail. We're being hit by some hurricane weather. We have horrible infrastructure. It's better than in some developing nations, perhaps, but it's far worse than it should be. We basically stopped building any water management about 50 or 60 years ago. These are things that we should be doing. And if we were building these things and doing these things, we would even be stopping hyperinflation. The dollar would have more power. Clearly, that is not the intent. On a housekeeping note, I will continue to do the Friday symposiums. They will be at 8:30 p.m. to allow participation by some of our younger members who have begun an economics class on LaRouche's method. And if you are or know people basically under the age of 40 or so, you are welcome. Please sign up. Please contact us. And then finally, I would like to thank all of our veterans. It is Veterans Day, and I think each of us really should conduct ourselves to ensure that people who have sacrificed everything for our nation have not done so in vain. So I will conclude with that. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again very soon.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Thanks.